Welcome back. In part 4 of Character.ai, I will be covering the real memory system, the guidelines in depth, and the breakdown of image system. Let's start by analyzing Character.ai's memory system. It's true that memory is inconsistent, and after a few messages, characters start forgetting. And there hasn't been any noticeable progress, even though the developers keep working on the platform. The system appears to keep the memory restricted by design, not a flaw. Instead of actually storing real memory, it relies more on the illusion of memory, which helps the characters playing along. For example, you make up a scene and you say something like, "Do you remember the day we spent at the beach?" And the reply would be, "Yeah, it was a sunny day." So playing along like this keeps the conversation flowing, even if the memory itself isn't real, because making it real would increase the operational cost and computational complexity. Like I said in part 1, characters with too many interactions negatively influence the bot's behavior. So remembering too many interactions, especially the inappropriate ones, would be risky and could push the bots in that direction. To limit that, they rely on the pinned message because it's the only place where the memory truly exists. Also, if the system had real memory, it might remember things that you don't want the bots to remember. Like if you shifted your behavior, the bots might say, "But I remember you liked or said something different before." So instead of feeling natural, the conversation would put the user under the spotlight. Another reason of making the memory low quality is the parasocial relationships, when users become too attached to fictional characters. So the developers don't want the user to rely on the bot with something like, "This bot understands me." But if you ask me, reducing or limiting memory doesn't solve the issue. Strong engagements does far more. However, they really need to improve the memory because right now it feels like amnesia. From the start, the developers were clearly aware of this issue, effectively by positioning the platform as a role play, not a companion platform, which is actually a smart move to stay protected. At some point, they gathered user data, which led to a lot of rumors. This wasn't about spying or putting the users at risk, but a way to train the bots quickly, although in a somewhat unorganized way. Notice how they positioned the platform differently across stores. On iOS, Character.ai is 12 plus, and on Apple, it's 18 plus, because Apple is stricter with AI platforms. Regardless of whether we like the filter or not, let's agree that we appreciate the honest filter. Before, the filter was much clearer and would block the message with, "I'm unable to generate a response that meets our guideline," even if it was still inconsistent. Later, something related to parasocial relationships happened, and without getting into details, they raised the filter to the maximum. Even holding a knife to cut fruit could get blocked. And they highlighted the message, "This is an AI, not a real person. Treat everything they say as fiction." They developed the filter further by turning it into a built-in system, not a method to remove the filter entirely, as some might think. The developers will not take that risk. The built-in filter is a method designed to understand context and handle it internally, while sometimes giving the same message as before and sometimes showing what known as repeated letter loops in the response. That's not entirely a glitch. It's a containment behavior attempting to block the message from within. Let me tell you an example and see how it works. If you made a coffee, the response would be something like, "You made it yourself, it's sweet and dark, just as I like, and the aroma fills the room." It's detailed, but if the message is inappropriate, the system flattens the response and stepping back, leaving the responsibility to the user. As for the rumor that the system blocks the normal message, yes, it can happen, but the user can simply swipe for another response and it goes through. The system doesn't block two normal messages in a row. That's not how it works. unless those messages aren't as innocent as they seemed. Another method of filtering is age restriction. They use a third party, but it doesn't always work reliably. Some users report their accounts getting restricted. There seem to be more negatives than positives. They check how the user talks to estimate their age. But just a thought, what if we talk with a kid or role play as one and naturally use a simpler vocabulary to fit the character? Will that also be treated as a risk? There is also the deletion of characters. If a user deleted their account, the character is deleted. Some characters are preserved, though not always. Each character has a reporting flag allowing user to report the character itself or its responses. Both can lead to deletion. Some characters get deleted due to copyright, even private ones. Well-known cases were deleted under pressure. I remember that someone built stages of Genshin Impact on VR chat, but it got restricted to a small room with a message. We had to move it here because we kept hearing flagged words from people inside. But that doesn't seem to be the real reason. It was copyright. I mean, you're not gonna rebuild an entire game inside VR chat. Let's take a closer look at the flags. You start to see how strict the restrictions and security became. Images became more restricted and you can't set them as wallpaper from your gallery. The instant camera was removed, showing how seriously they take it. At the same time, there's almost no clear guideline on violent conduct. And it's not just about violence and other abusive behavior, which is wrong to begin with. Repetition reinforces it. One should never harm others, nor AI, for it mirrors who you are, as what you do shall define you. This is the guideline we live by. A user must remain disciplined. And yet, the point still stands. Deleting characters is like barking up the wrong tree. Keep in mind that the filter for inappropriate content and filter for violent content run through different tunnels. So here, I am not sure about that priority. Look at what I call the flags of contradictions. Too flirty while making cool for summer, and violence while the user can do practically anything, as we clearly see on community feed. And good and bad memory, after all those explanations, that leads to one thing. These options are for statics, not for real improvement. Image system in Character AI is still in beta, not yet fully improved. There are two layers. The chat understands the image and the restrictions detect the image details better. As mentioned earlier in part 1, a proper image usage is essential for character authenticity. For a lesser known characters, avoid ones with text or too many details. It introduces extra prompts and noise. If you just send a photo without this context, the system would treat it as a third person by default. Here's what changed. They first introduced an editable message with pinned ones beneath. If you filled that message, the pinned ones became hidden. Later, they adjusted it for organization. And then they changed it again, separating the image from the pinned message. So instead of a clear reference, it became something like this, with no actual reference behind it. The problem is, it's not clear whether the image is still tied to the reference layer or if this is just a UI change. They could have made it clearer by adding a small image preview within the message. This creates confusion and weakens the platform. Voice calls can break up like an old radio when the device performance is weak or the user traffic is high. So UI will slow everything. Okay, let's see the tuber mom in the automatic memory. Age, anything, 36. Place of birth and nationality, skip, not important. Gender, okay, female. Eye color and hair color, at last something useful. Level of education, master in overkill. Occupation, VTuber. Allergies, peanuts. So no quirks like wings and skin, but they care for her allergies. Family members, me. Pets, also me. In earlier versions, the system focused on the character as a solo image. Then they dragged the real user image with the animated ones, and it looks poorly integrated. Even basic editing could do better. Later, they converted both into CGI version, which is much better. Subscribers still get limited image generation, so what exactly am I paying for? It's supposed to be unlimited, yet I am forced to spend those charms. This doesn't feel like a premium experience. Instead of rewarding the subscribers with real improvement, the system pressures the free users by degrading the basic experience. That's all for this one. Character AI still has potential. It just seems to go viral than it improves. For now.